Today's guest that we have with us is former Derbyshire and Warwickshire player and legend, current Hampshire bowling coach, current Southern Brave. Is that the 100 team?
That's the one, Chris.
Pop Graeme Welch. Thanks very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Anything to help you two?
Well, you've probably done enough, I think, at this point for us to help us in our careers. But your achievements are pretty numerous. I think as a player, you won the county championship, didn't you, in 1994, 1995 with Warwickshire?
I got a medal for 95, but that's quite an interesting story, really. I had a good year in 94. I think I played about 11 games. Then the second year in 1995, I got rested after the first game of the season. And probably didn't play. Played about 2 or 3 games that year, so I got a medal. But you know what I mean. I didn't really feel like
you had Brian Lara as well, didn't you? In those 2 years, so we could arguably, say you probably cheated Warwickshire at that point.
I was Lara in 94, but AD in 95, so not too bad overseas players.
Decent replacement. And then as a coach, your achievements are vast. You've got Lord's final winners in 2008, 2010, county championship.
Was that with you at Essex, Chris?
It was, and then with Keith in 2010 at Warwickshire. County championship in 2012.
Yeah,
2000.
Very good year.
Great year. 2014 T20. And then
I wasn't there then, Chris. I wasn't there.
Were you not?
No, in 2014 I went to Derby. So I was a elite performance director at Derby, Christopher.
Nice. You make your own title there, haven't you? Clearly.
No, wasn't it? Yeah, they made that for me. I was a bit embarrassed actually, because I never classed myself as elite.
And your latest ones, 2021, you won both the 100 and the county championship again. Is that right?
Yeah, with Warwickshire. And that was the year when you only played 5-6 games, and then you went into a playoffs. You took the points through. So we won that in Warwickshire in, what was that, 21, did you say?
Yeah, I believe so. Well, to be honest, I think you messaged through, didn't you? Just because we asked for what your achievements were, you put 2021 down. So I think it is, it would have been 2021, COVID period.
And then that year I was luckily enough to be part of the Southern Brave, where we won the inaugural first one. So that was quite enjoyable.
Yeah, nice. Are you happy to answer some quick fire questions to start off with, Keith?
Oh yes, okay, go on then.
Right, Graeme. Extra 5 mile an hour of pace or an extra 6 inches of bounce?
Oh, bounce without doubt. Bounce get good players out, Keith. You know that. You and Chris both know that.
Back of the hand slowy or knuckleball?
I love the back of the hand, really. I love the back of the hand, but the more slow balls you can have, the better. But the back of the hand's the one I enjoy seeing.
Swing or nip?
Obviously swing. The finer art of the game.
Bowled or caught behind?
Ooh. I love the caught behind. I love the batsman playing a defensive shot and he just has a little tickle and goes either the first or second slip.
Good bouncer or good yorker?
I wish I could have bowled either, but probably the bouncer.
So, bounce, I'm pretty happy to hear bounce from you. Back of the hand slowy. Do you ever
Are you reviewing my question?
Yeah, I am. Knuckle. You went back of the hand slowy over knuckleball. Did you ever try knuckleball, or was it not around when you played?
Nothing much was around when I played. It was an off cutter, a leg cutter, and a good length, really, and the odd bouncer.
Swing or nip? You've gone swing. Obvious reasons. I think me and Wrighty would probably agree to a certain point with this answer that you've had. Is we think that every bowler should learn to swing the ball, get the wrist in a good position. So I think that's a good answer, but I prefer a bit of nip nowadays.
But you didn't when you were younger, Keith. You didn't when you were younger.
But it's good to be able to do both. You love a little tickle to slip, do you?
Oh, it's nice, yeah. Don't you agree? The batsman just playing a normal defensive shot and you've just outwitted them with your skill.
And did you say bouncer, good bouncer?
Yeah.
We've just had a discussion on bounces. Where would you see your bounce if the perfect bouncer to you? How's it going towards a batsman?
Well, it's nipping back, really. It's nipping back to hit them in the left lug if they're a right-handed batsman.
Were you
I
not?
think I only bounced one person out in my life. I think I only bounced one person out in my life, and that was at Derby, Gareth Batty. And I had to.
Okay.
I laughed because Mike Hendrick used to say, "Pop, you've got to bowl bouncers." I'm like, "Hendo, I can't. I'm not quick enough." And then Gareth Batty came in. I bowled a bouncer, and he top edged it straight to backward square. And I remember just bursting out laughing. Somebody got out to a bouncer from me. And I think we played when we played the T20 finals day. I had a good conversation with Bats, and I think I reminded of him. He couldn't remember it, but never mind.
I've got a bit of a theory actually that almost the more you're about line and length and movement, the more important a good bumper is. Do you know what I mean? So for someone like yourself who had all those skills, a good bumper is going to buy you that little bit of length that, you know what I mean, gets you errors and stuff.
100% agree. But that's what I was saying for when I first was growing up and learning to bowl. I remember Neil Aberley telling me stories about Tom Cartwright, who would bowl a half volley in April and he'd never bowl another one.
Yeah, it's my belief actually that the more you're about line and length and movement in general, the more important almost your bumper is, because you've got to buy yourself that little bit of length that's going to make batters make errors on the front foot. I don't know what you think about that, both of you.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. It was just when I was being brought up, Neil Aberley would tell me stories about Tom Cartwright, who would bowl a half volley in April and then he would never bowl another one for the rest of the season. How he would actually, and I think he was just telling us a few porkies here, to be honest. He said if he bowled a good spell, there'd be a hole in the ground like that where he just wouldn't miss. And I've never seen that in my life, so I think he was just actually.
I hate all those stories. I hate them, don't you? Like where coaches say stuff like, "Oh, I used to earn a living by bowling at pound coins on the local park," and you're like, "No, he didn't, because you have no money, no money at all." Gosh,
Should have deleted this, Chris, but never mind.
So, Pop, obviously you've been around quite a bit as a player and as a coach. You've got quite a lot of achievements, as we've just heard. What specifically do you look for in a bowler that kind of ticks some boxes for you?
I think I've had a long think about this over my career, Keith, and I suppose the categories are pace. You've got to be looking for pace. If anybody's got pace, you're laughing, yeah. Obviously, we discussed bounce get good players out. Then you chuck in the mix skill. Bowlers have got to have a big heart as well. You know, they've got to keep coming back after bowling 20 overs the day before. They've got to get up, they've got to refuel, and they've got to go again. So your heart, and it's obviously bowling intelligence. You've got to take a lot of things into consideration: boundary size, pitches, batter strengths, using you know what I mean. There's a lot of things. So all them things, I always say to coaches, if you find those 5 things in a young individual, pack in coaching and become an agent, basically.
Okay, who's the closest to having all of those things that you've ever come across?
Well, you 2 aren't too bad, to be honest. You fellas, I put you in that category. Maybe Keith lacking in the heart department. But,
so I've got pace. I'll take pace over like a heart.
Amazing. That's what we want in the podcast. We want that kind of banter flying around. Oh, dear.
Obviously, Walksy's up there with one of the best. So I think the people who I'm working with at this moment in time, especially Kyle Abbott and Keith Barker and Mohammed Abbas, they've got all of those things. Obviously, they're coming. I wouldn't say they're coming to the end of their career. They're just getting a little bit long on the tooth, so the pace is probably down. But they tick every single one of them boxes, and I think that's part of why we've been very successful. We squeeze the life out of teams. The ball intelligence is out of this world. I love the way Keith comes round the wicket, it straightens it up with his wobble. Maul use the crease. Kyle just hammer a length, nipping it back, blowing the shin off. So I'd say, Yeah, who else is there? There've been quite a few, to be honest, but I'll give you lads some respect. You two are up there.
Just to clarify, from what you said just a moment ago, obviously you said about pace. Are you saying that pace is the be all and end all, and if you haven't got it, then unlucky, or is that just if you've got pace, that is a nice added element to being a very good bowler if you've got the other things in order?
I think with these 5 things that I've said there are always going to be discrepancies on where, because nobody is that good. I suppose Pat Cummins is up there at this moment in time, you know what I mean? Josh Hazelwood, Mitchell Stark, the best bowlers in the world have got these things. But I think, obviously, the more you have, the higher they are. The more you have, the more successful you will be.
And kind of just saying that you said about me coming around the wicket. Remember, there's quite a long time. Well, to be fair, it's probably been for a while up until recently. You weren't a fan of me coming around the wicket, was it?
Are you talking about the wobble seam?
Yeah.
Are we the wobble seam? Well, I've got theories on the wobble seam, as you know.
Yeah.
I think I'd always start by, if we're coaching a bowler, is actually getting them to stand the seam up so they can feel the ball coming out the right place in the hand. Wobble seam is it a bit of a gamble if you don't know what you're doing, or is it just an excuse? You hold the seam and you hope something happens. Well, you're lacking a little bit of skill in my eyes from that. You know what I mean? And you coming around the wicket, obviously you've learned to wobble it. And the angles around the wicket, holding it up to right handers, you can beat them both sides, Keith. That's why I've probably had to, how can I put this? Rethink my philosophy on it.
Yeah, I think you're right in that, you know, some people can have a poor wrist and just say, yeah, I bowl wobble seam, when actually they don't. They actually need to get their stuff together on that. But yeah,
we had a bit of a practice yesterday. Keith was coaching me yesterday, Chris.
Oh, right.
How to do the wobble seam.
Came out really well.
Sometimes it did, but sometimes it didn't. Because all my life, the ball was just put in my hand. So if you put a brand new ball in my hand, I'll just hold it the same every time. So obviously for the in-swinger, we're trying to mess around with the same position to see if I could just stay behind the ball a little bit more. And as soon as I put it in a position for an in-swinger, my wrist just broke and I bowled an in-swinger. So I'd have to, do you know what I mean? It's obviously, it's an art learning how to bowl the wobble seam. But like I say, I think there's a lot of people these days just use as an excuse just because they can't stand the seam up.
I'm so glad that you have that viewpoint. I completely agree. I think it's dangerous to sell a young bowler just on bowling a wobble seam, because invariably the bowlers you see that bowl it really well, they all have something else behind it. So if you look at Keith can swing it back in from over. He can go around and bowl wobble seam, but actually Keith has more control of it than a lot of people I've ever spoken to about it in terms of knowing which way it might nip. Also, you get your metronomic in your accuracy and you get bounce. Someone, use another example, Kyle Abbott. Well, he's a huge presence. He's quick, he's fast, and he holds his length. So if it doesn't nip, it's still good. Bassey, again, metronomic. He's kind of skiddy. He gets the ball doing all sorts of funky stuff. He's not sort of exclusively just trying to sort of wobble it down there. There's always something else. So I think if you're like a young aspiring bowler and you're sort of 6 foot and you're sort of hovering around that 80 mile an hour pace, you're probably going to need a bit more, I think, than just hoping for 1 in 3 balls to nip back. Do you know what I mean?
I totally agree. And the thing, you go back to Kyle Abbott, it's a pleasure working with Kyle, you know, and the 3 big lads, Keith, Kyle, and Bassey. It's like I say, they're just whole length all day, build pressure, but the ball's always doing something. But they know what they're doing; they've earned that right. You know what I mean? That's how I see it.
Sorry.
Okay. Now you go.
At Warwickshire, and I've been in obviously different sports, different environments, but at Warwickshire, you managed to build a unit which I don't think many teams or enough teams probably have around the circuit. You managed to build a bowling unit within a team that really got on well, and you know we all were wanting the best for each other, even though we were competing for spots. How did you create that? What things did you put in place? So do you feel as though it happened naturally on its own?
No, well, this is why I've had to look at it when I've moved everywhere. What I do, you know what I mean? So I've analysed this quite a lot, and it's about shared experience. It's first of all getting to know the individual. So building a relationship with that individual before you get anywhere near the team. And then what you've got to try and do is you've got to shared experiences, shared adversity. If you remember correctly, and I think I've done this everywhere. When I was at Essex, Chris, you'll know, the orange tree around the corner, we used to have reviews I shouldn't be saying this, but we used to have reviews in the pub, didn't we?
Yeah.
Occasionally. When it came to Warwickshire, where did we have the reviews? We used to, I know, because when you lads looked a bit tired or from sessions or something, I would say, well, you know what I'll say to Ashes? We're just going to have a bowlers meeting. I'm going to take you off-site. And we would go to the quarterhouse. You know, is it the quarterhouse or the quarterhouse?
Quarterhouse. Yeah.
So we'd go there and we'd all sit round. I'd buy everybody breakfast. I think that was one of the main things because there was a lot of tight lads around. You know what I mean? Loving the money. So
I don't remember you buying me a breakfast. When was this?
Yeah, avocado on toast and all of that.
No, I'm kidding. No, you may have bought a couple of coffees, to be fair.
So I bought some breakfast. But the thing it was, though, I tried to just bring everybody together all the time. Tried to stimulate conversations, tried to put plans together. If you remember rightly, the shared experiences when we were playing one-day cricket was that, I know you take credit for this, Chris, but, you know, when we put the bowling batsman things together, whether the 360, whether the deflectors, can you remember us? We were going to Barbados, I think, and on the plane on the way over there, we had everybody around discussing that. So everybody's buying into it. And then it's just down to you policing your values, your principles, and your expectations, really, and staying on that. But the beauty with that you were good lads, you know what I mean? It was funny, it was enjoyable. It was we'd have massive arguments sometimes, but it was all everybody moving together in the right, everybody moving together towards the right goal.
Can I ask a question here, Keith? Because I'm interested there, Pop. You said about good lads. What is it that you're actually looking for? Do you have like a criteria for this? And actually, earlier you mentioned about heart as well being an attribute you look for in a bowler.
Yeah.
How do you know these things when you're putting together a unit or whether you're coaching? Like, what are you doing or looking for?
Well, it's how they live their life. It's their behaviours. It's their languages. It's their language. It's how they interact with the other lads. It's whether they want the lads to do well, you know, all these things. And like I said, at Warwickshire, it wasn't all a bed of roses a lot of the time, but everybody wanted each other to do well. You know what I mean? Keith, for instance, running on the pitch so Jeets could get wickets, you know, bowling the hard overs from certain ends. Well, Ricky didn't want to do that, you know what I mean? Ricky liked the wind and everything, but Ricky looked after the lads. And then you can't forget someone like Darren Maddy who complemented that attack as well. So if you can you not remember though, it wasn't batters versus bowlers, but there was an underlying thing of batters versus bowlers at the end of the day, but it was healthy. It was a healthy situation.
Yeah, I've just for any umpires that may listen, I don't run on the wicket now. I don't.
Yeah, you run near the wicket, Keith.
Just if you're watching, I don't do that now.
To be fair, you're around the wicket all the time, so you
yeah, that's true. Yeah, people look at Dawes and go, "Oh, he's doing it for Dawes." Yeah, I agree with you there, Pop. I think you're spot on. I think we
actually agreeing with me again. That's twice you've agreed with me this morning. What's happened?
Oh, we're on a pod, so I'm trying to make you look good.
All right, okay.
No, I just find it interesting with that because, you know, I've seen a shift at Hampshire as well. I mean, lads are a bit more together than probably what they were before and what they have in the past. So it's just interesting to see how you go about your coaching and making.
Well, what do you see? What do you think, Keith? What do you see that I've done? I've been here 2 years.
But even if I go back to Warwickshire days, even when we used to have analysis, I remember you getting in young Lammy and Aaron, who were only 16, 17, who were never going to play at that point, but having them in, analysis chats, just to get a feel of what it's actually like, what we talk about, what to look for, what if it's really serious, is it a bit more relaxed, and kind of exposing them a little bit more to that environment, because they were people that you looked at as had great potential. So you're actually introducing them into the environment early to get a feel for it, rather than it be a shock to the system when they were to carry on and get to the level. And I think it's the small details of that which really does help, because we, as senior players, we can help bring those players through, get a bit of an understanding with them. And I think it's small details like that that a lot of coaches, whether it's batting or bowling, don't pick up on. I remember yourself being criticised from another coach, I'm not going to say the coach's name, of they were saying that, once they leave the ground, their phone's off. They're not accepting calls from any player, where you were totally different. That you're not just there as a coach, you're there as someone who's had a lot more experience in life or whatever. You were there for players whenever they needed you. And I think that helped build a relationship and trust with the player for you to get more out of them and them to trust you more in what you believe.
Yeah, well, it's like what I said before. It's about, the first thing is about building relationships, understanding each other, understanding what makes them tick, understand how they think, how they learn, all those things you chuck into the mix. You know what I mean? It's interesting you said Lammy.
Oh, he was a bowler at that. He was a bowler at that. He was, yeah.
Yeah, then bowl long with that action.
No.
Would it? When I went back to Warwickshire, we tried to make him into a leg spinner, and that was actually better, because the poor lad would have snapped by the time he was 21. But just funny you say that. When we went to Warwickshire, I tried. When you lads left, and we had Liam Norwell, Craig Miles, and they come in. I tried to think outside the box for that and try and challenge them and put them under a little bit of pressure. And we had a bit of a book club where we'd read, is it Leif Babin, and who's his, the SAS man, where we'd just sit down for an hour and discuss that. Also, when I was at Derby trying to get the team together, we did a dance routine. Everybody's taken massively out of their comfort zones, something that we just shared together. Even though the lads hated every minute of it, we danced to James Brown, the boss, So it's all those little things. And going back to about building relationships, going on your journey, I think this day and age, it's changed a little bit, because I see players moving around different coaches, which I don't think that's good practice at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like I said, you've got to be on their journey with them. You've got to be going through the good and the bad times with them, knowing that you've got the back.
You mentioned something a little bit earlier about good lads, and we've probably heard it before by different coaches when they say, "Oh, that person's a good lad." And can you, just for the listeners, define the difference of what you see as a good lad? Because I know what some other coaches see as what is a good lad, but then the way that person interacts or trains or plays is not in the same viewing of my view or your view as a good lad. Can you define what yours as a good lad is?
Well, I try to anchor myself against my philosophy, Keith. Yeah, and this is how I try to live my life. It's by learning, always learning, and continuous learning. It's working hard. You two know I like having fun, and I like enjoying myself. I know there's a time and a place for that. But then it's just being a good bloke and anchoring yourself against your values. Being humble, working together, you know what I mean? Doing that extra yard for your mates. Going out your way to help your mates. Putting the hard yards in. Those are the values that I look for. That's what makes a good lad to me. Just a decent human being at the end of the day. Take cricket away from it, you know what I mean? Normal things like opening doors for people and just being polite, saying morning to people when you're people on the gate, for instance, you know what I mean? Getting to know them. And this is why one of our head coach, Eddie Birrell, he's spot on at that, Keith. Yeah. He's spot on at that, trying to make people just be good, decent human beings. And the more I've been coaching, that's the more what I look like. The old saying is, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. If they're on their own heads, if they're that far up their own, You know what I mean? It's difficult to get messages across to those people.
I mean that's awesome. And this podcast, it was always me interesting as to what direction it would go. So it's got quite philosophical here, which is quite nice. In terms of
us three are quite philosophical, though. You know what I mean? This is why we're all virtually not the same people, but we all think the same way. We've all got those values and principles that we stick to.
no, I agree.
I remember you getting upset, Wrighty, for the smallest things. You know what I mean? I remember it really affecting you. So that those things that got to learn that Wrighty's quite sensitive. We can't talk about his skinny legs or his terrible shorts. You know what I mean?
I was going to say there in a serious way, I was like, you can share them if you want, because it'd be interesting to know if there's any specific things you remember where I'd get upset.
Well, first of all, me trying to help you with an alternative delivery, that was like pulling teeth.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I fully agree. It would take me 3 years to get an idea in my head, to let it churn through. And ultimately, it probably held me back a bit, but equally a bit of stubbornness and a bit of simplicity probably helped me too. So it's that balance, isn't it? You'd say about philosophy. So if I could, you say good lad. That's a good term. I think I'd want a bowler who was heart. How you measure that, I have no idea. But I'd literally heart number one, because I think you can actually be. I think you can be quite average as a bowler, but if you've got a big heart, you can do pretty well. And team first would be number two. Someone who will do whatever you want from them, and then I'd start looking at all the other stuff.
But you mentioned heart. You mentioned heart there, Chris. Okay, and I don't think this is one of my bugbears at this moment in time with bowlers. I've had sessions over the last 5, 6, 7 years where bowlers have come in and they bowl 4 overs and then walk out and say, "I'm sorry, I can't bowl anymore. My workload's a bit too high." Now, I want a bowler that's going to go. Probably the physicist said I can't, but I want to practice another couple of overs here. You know what I mean? That would send messages to me straight away. You know, there's people come in after the session from the gym where they've tried to run up and they've bounded and they've collapsed on the floor because they've been in the gym for the last 3 hours. You know what I mean? All these, if you're aware, if you're self-aware and you're observant, there's a lot of messages that you can pick up from people. Language, attitudes, body language, you know what I mean? You can see it. Even things like people forget a jumper, they'll take it back in. I will see that. They'll take it back in for the teammates. I will see that, you know what I mean? And that's probably another little tick. He's not thinking of himself. He's not in his own head. He's thinking about the team. He's thinking about his teammates.
Are there any qualities that the best players you've worked with have all had? Is there one thing that they all have without fail?
They're driven.
Okay.
They can be quite stubborn. They are. They work tirelessly. They work hard. They're always looking to try and get better. They're looking at avenues. They're trying to source information. And then the practice at game intensity. That's what I see. Those are the bowlers that I'd say that's the reason why they're the best. Obviously, with the attributes we spoke about earlier on, but you throw all that in the mix, that's why they're the most successful. But they've got an inner steel, an inner desire to just get better. Not about moving to the next level. It's just about getting better.
You know, you mentioned about that sort of batters v bowlers kind of thing. Provided it's managed properly within a team, I think that definitely helps the training aspect that you were talking about there.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, there's no escaping the fact that you're in a one-on-one battle every time you're batting or bowling. And the more you can practice being in that state, is going to help you, I think, on game day. But again, provided it's not sort of
as long as it's healthy. As long as it's healthy. That's why cricket's such a difficult game, because it's individuals playing a team sport. So I reckon it's the art of it. If you can bring people together in a common goal, that's the winner for me. You know, obviously you've got to have good players as well.
And I think that helped us a lot, especially at Warwickshire, looking at what we did, and going back to what you mentioned earlier about good lads and how you see them and the way that they go about stuff. One thing I think was really good is we were able to be honest, and we did have clashes within it between us as a bowling unit on ideas, or it could be Wrighty trying to something new. Wrighty spraying me once for, I forgot what it was. I remember saying something thinking, Jesus, wasn't expecting that response. And but we were able to put it to one side, and he was a bit irritated by that, but he knows it's coming from a good place. I can understand that he's reacted that way, and he's not meaning to do whatever it was that was mentioned. But our goal was to still try and be better and improve. I think that's what really helped the group develop to the way it was. I had a question for you because me and Wrighty spoke about this the other week, and I mentioned it to you, and you were a bit unsure. Me and Wrighty were talking about, he was saying, if it's a left-handed batter and you need someone to go away from the batsman, don't bowl me, bowl X person, because that's what they do. And I disagreed a little bit because of the age Wrighty's at and how much he's played. And for myself, I'd do the same. Is I would think that by that point, you've developed yourself enough to be able to do that skill rather than needing one specific person. So when we were at Warwickshire, we had me who could swing it back to a right-hander. Wrighty was going to swing it away with pace. Ricky Clark was going to come in, go at twos, use the up bouncer. Boy was going to go for runs, but take wickets. Welksy was Welksy, and we had G's. Every role was covered. But was that because we were at that stage in our careers? And if we were that bowling unit now, obviously maybe not as old, but still more experienced, would we have still had those roles, or would we have been able to just bowl whoever we wanted at any time almost?
Well, every bowler's got their super strength, you know what I mean? It's like it comes back to those 5 things: pace, skill, bounce, heart. Every bowler has their super strengths. But then I think in an ideal world, you'd love every bowler to have the skill to be able to bowl at every batsman. But in a team environment, there's sometimes people are better than that at you know what I mean? So there's no right or wrong answer, I see, with that. The best thing is, if you've got a variety in your attack, that you were able to change tempos and different tactics at different times. But that still doesn't mean that bowler must bowl at that batsman, you know what I mean? There's no right or wrong with it. The more variety in your attack, like you said, we had left arm, right arm, off spinner, tall bowler, pace, and someone that just sat in. You chuck that in the mix, that should be good enough to get a ball any team out on any surface. That's how I see it. And whether we stumbled across that, I don't really know, but it worked. It actually worked. Whereas I think here at Hampshire, what we've got is we've obviously got you as a left arm, you can come round, but Kyle and Moore are very similar. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How they work.
They go about things. And then what we're looking to, we had a James Fuller who's got a bit of pace, a John Turner who's got a bit of pace, and a Brad Whale who's got a bit of pace. So that's complementing the attack. Then obviously Liam Dawson, and then Tom Preston, Felix Organ. So we are covered on most pitches. That's why I think we're successful as well. I hope did I answer that?
Yeah, no,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, yeah, you did. You answered it perfectly well.
What's something talking about, lads? I've never had these.
Well, you've always spoken well, Pop. You have. So yeah, go on.
All right. We've had a lot of compliments then. Let's go back in time, and I won't give you a compliment. Can you remember when we first met?
Yes, Chris, I can. Yes.
I'll try and give them. Well, I just moved from Middlesex, basically looking to progress my career and stuff. And Middlesex, they didn't have a bowling coach, and I wanted to play more. So lots of enthusiasm. I thought, right, the move is a good one. And they brought you in as bowling coach, and I was like, okay. This I don't know much about Graeme Welch, but obviously good bowler, good record. And I think had you snapped your Achilles?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Chris.
So you literally look like a hobo that had been dragged off the street.
So
And
I'll
you
tell you the
stood at the
story
back
with
of the net.
I'll tell you the story with that. I'd obviously had my second operation for a shredded Achilles. I remember playing football with Ethan the Saturday before we would go, and I felt something snap again. So I remember travelling to Essex, and who was the physio? Can you remember the physio?
Oh, was it a guy called Mark Roberts at that point?
It was Mark. So I showed him my leg, and the horror in his face, he couldn't believe. 2 holes had opened up at the back of my leg, yeah? And he said, "Do not say anything, all right? Just get on the plane." So I got on the plane, and obviously with altitude and everything, my leg blew up, didn't it? Okay, I couldn't walk 1 foot in front of the other. So I had to try and like dislocate my hip to drag my leg along. So the first day of training, where I've seen Wrighty, I'm walking with a bag of balls, dragging my leg along, looking like an absolute. It wasn't a good look, was it?
Well, you certainly look smarter now. You've aged really well. Yeah, like back then, I was like, I can't believe this is my new bowling coach. I've moved counties for this guy, and it was you. But obviously, it turned out really well because you're a fantastic coach, and
you're a great lad as well, Chris.
Thanks. No, but what I like about you is how you coach everyone very differently. So I don't know if we've talked about this already on the podcast, but my sessions and Keith's sessions are completely different. Probably, complete opposite ends of the spectrum.
You both require different things. This is the thing. If you're planning and if you're aware and you review and you observe all those things in sessions, and you remember what you spoke about. It isn't one size that fits all. It's everyone's individual and everybody needs something different. So it's just being diligent with your preparation and your reviewing, really.
Do you believe in like a technical model that has to be followed at all?
It's the same principles. What I work on is alignment. If you want to get the ball down in a straight line, your body has to be going in that movement. You know what I mean? It has to be going towards the target. Next thing is energy in the ball. This is where at Essex again, I think we had a baseball pitcher came in, didn't he? And he gave me an idea. This was the time when Brett Lee was the rage. He was the rave, you know what I mean? Where you lock the ball and then you ball over your front leg. And I remember the ECB, that was the model that everybody had to bowl by, because Brett Lee bowled quick. Everybody had to bowl like that. And I disagreed with that, actually. So the energy in the ball contradicted what that was saying. But the energy in the ball, because they're saying when you're a baseball pitcher, you've got to keep the ball moving to keep energy in it. I said, well, we're bowling the ball, we're projecting the ball down there, so we've got to keep energy in it. It's efficiency, everything working together. And that's what rhythm is. You know, there's sometimes you'll bowl balls and you think, I have felt no stress, no power, no nothing, and that ball's flown through the keeper. That's the timing, and that's the efficiency. And then it comes back to how strong and stable you are at the crease. So that's my little bit of a checklist. I try and keep it very simple, as you both know.
Oh, I did a Dennis Lilly bowling camp, actually. I'm sure you knew that. When that was all the rage in Chennai.
Did I go on that?
Yeah. No, I was at Middlesex at the time because they didn't have a bowling coach. So they sent the young bowlers to Chennai to work with Dennis Lilly, which was in isolation was awesome. It was a great experience. But, at one point we're just all around a table and essentially we were, whatever our action was, we were just all being referred back to the Brett Lee sort of model.
Yeah.
And, you're sitting there thinking, so for example, on that trip, Tony Palladino was on it, Richard Jones was on it, James Anyon was on it, Tim Gronewald was on it.
Yeah.
And myself. So we're all completely different. Yeah, we're all being told to do the whole lock-in thing and, running at the same angle. Yeah, and when you're like, it can't be right, surely.
No. People are individual. And this is what I always say to bowlers. Two people talk about changing actions. And I think if a coach came in and says, we're looking to change your action, I'd be on the back foot straight away, you know what I mean? So what I try to say is I don't change actions. I just try and clean them up to make them more efficient.
I love that term. That's
It's
a really good way of
it's
saying
like
it.
your car. If you have your car serviced, how nice is it when you've just had your car serviced with new tyres? It runs beautifully. It turns corners. It's efficient. That's the analogy I would use to it. You know what I mean? If everything's working together and your timings are all right and the pace you run in is optimal and you hit the deck and you're strong and you're stable, that's the... it's actually quite very, very simple. And you don't lose your uniqueness.
Well, on that, Pop, there's been, for me, I've learned a lot from you, just from you coaching me, and I was having quite a lot of conversations. I'm someone who's massively on technique. There's a lot, and it frustrates me. I hear a lot of coaches just talking about, oh yeah, brace front. Oh, he hasn't got a braced front leg, but we're going to try and get them to have a braced front leg. There's a massive, and I know you've been someone on the whole safety side of the action as well. There's a massive push for pace, brace front legs. But if people aren't naturally braced with their front leg, let's say they collapse quite a lot, is it not a dangerous thing to do to then try and change a bowler to just brace their front leg?
Well, yeah, it could be if you're totally changing what they do. That could be dangerous. And the thing about a braced front leg, I've watched a lot of bowlers over my life, and everybody's different. Some people, in an ideal world, if you've got a braced front leg, that's perfect. But if you're going to do, even the thought of that freaks me out. The thought of my knee going through me neck, you know what I mean? If that's not the position you get in. Yeah, it's some coaches do that, but it comes back to what does the individual need to improve? That's all that is. So if the individual doesn't need a braced front leg, I'm sure there's better and quicker wins somewhere else in the action that will help them improve.
I remember doing a drill once. This wasn't with you actually, but it was trying to be a bit more braced. Was almost instead of thinking about bracing your leg, although that's the outcome you're looking for, was about keeping your belly button almost parallel to the floor. Okay. So your guts going forward, and that actually helps a little bit. And you don't feel like you're just using your leg as a complete break, if you know what I mean. Yeah. It's more.
I'd always look at whether it's a heel strike or not. If it's a heel strike, they've probably got potential to be a braced front leg. But if the heel strike isn't there and you are landing, then I can't see how you can teach somebody to do that.
Do you prefer coaching, Pop? Do you prefer coaching to playing?
Alrighty, I forgot what it was playing. You know what I mean? It's been that long. Yeah, it's nearly 15, 16 years. You know what I mean? But what I love, like I say, going on people's journeys, seeing them progress, seeing them getting better. Yeah, that's what I'm in for. It not just cricket, anything. You know what I mean? I'll try and help anybody. I've coached people at the top end, and last week I was coaching Giles White's daughter. You know what I mean? Everybody gets the same from me because I enjoy watching them getting better. I'm watching them with a smile on their face, seeing them when you teach them something to turn around and have a look and go like, that's unbelievable. That's the kick I get out of it. Seeing individuals better.
Is any bowlers you found pretty much uncoachable or just very difficult to coach? And if so, what is it that has stopped you being able to get your message across to them?
Well, first of all, I've got to look at what I'm doing, whether I've built that relationship, whether I have gained that trust. That's my first port of call with every other player for them. So trust, like I said, I've got to analyse myself. I've got to look to what I'm doing, because you can't just coach people that you get on with or have that mindset that they want to get better. Being a coach is you're able to coach everybody.
There's one person I wanted to speak to you about, Pop, which was John Turner, the young fast bowler at Hampshire. What are your thoughts on him and how he's developed since you've been here?
Well, JT was always a specimen, wasn't he? Even as a young lad, he was strong. He's got all those things. He's got everything that I've mentioned earlier on. You know what I mean? He had pace. He had a certain amount of pace. He gets it to bounce. His skill's a little bit off at the moment because obviously he's a young lad, but he's got a massive heart. and he gets stuck in. Do you know what I mean? You see the red mist in his eyes. Technically, he was a little bit short. He was loading up across his body, and it coming back to my clear paths efficiency. So all we did was change his load up to try and make it come in a straighter line. And I'm not saying that's the reason why he put on 3 or 4 or 5 miles an hour, but I think it was just a perfect storm. He came back from South Africa. He was stronger. He was fitter. And he just turned into a man overnight. You know what I mean? When he came back, you can remember it, Keith, when he came back during that summer. And all we did was just try to make him a little bit more efficient. We trained before every T20 game, before he could get in. We basically did a skill set where he did his 4 overs, bounces, Yorkers, wide Yorkers, heavy lengths, and worked on a slow ball. So I think that just prepared him ready for it. And the way he bought into that technical change just comes back to he's had an open mindset and he wanted to get better. But the lad's going to be a superstar. He doesn't miss his lengths. He just, like I say, he just needs to improve his skill a little bit. He listens, he learns, he works hard. He's got a massive heart and he wants to get better. So all of them attributes just came together at once. And I was lucky enough to see it, you know what I mean? I've seen him go to the next level, which is like what I said, I just want everyone to get better.
Yeah, he's going to be something special, I think. He, like the boxes that you like to tick, he gets nip, he gets bounce, and he's got raw pace. It's really exciting to watch. Really exciting future.
Massive heart as well, Keith. Massive heart.
Yeah.
Love it. So, Pop, before we wrap up, because we've been on for a decent amount of time now, for our listeners, have you got, I don't want you to sum everything up, but is there one bit of advice that you'd love to share for people who just want to get better and improve?
Listen to people, work hard, have fun. But the main thing is bowl overs, learn to bowl. Learn to bowl when you're tired. Learn to bowl when you're happy. Learn to bowl when you're sad. Learn to bowl in the wind and enjoy it. You're playing cricket for, you know what I mean? You're getting, well, you lads, this is one of the things, you're getting paid to play cricket. Don't take it too seriously and enjoy it and have fun.
I'll add to that is learn to bowl when you're sore. Too many soft bowlers out there that, it pisses me off. You've got to toughen up and stop trying to be looked after by physios and S&Cs too much. Got to be an adult at some point.
This is a good point, actually, because to be honest, aside from the first 5 overs of a day, you're going to be sore and maybe a bit tired and stuff. And so, yeah, no, it's great advice.
Chris, from the first of the season.
I'm not old, mate. I remember when you're on the physio's bench, the coach would come in and say, "Are you injured? You're not playing." So you jump up and run off. You know what I mean? Now, I see batters getting rubs on the physio bench, and there's nothing wrong with them.
I was going to say, from the first ball, I'm sore. Just got to deal with it. Get on with it.
Well,
Take what you need.
Our lads can't get on the physio bench because Keith's getting rubs all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've earned that, haven't you, Keith? To be fair.
Yeah.
I have, mate.
Well, look, I think we're ready to wrap up, Pop. But it's been a really wonderful chat. We really appreciate your time, and obviously from Keith and I, everything you've done for us up to this point in our careers, and hopefully in our future podcasting career as well, with you getting us loads of followers and stuff like that.
I just want to wish you lads too. It's good. I remember the first time you got together, the nickname we call you Miami Vice, Crockett and Tubbs. You know what I mean? So that was my. Well, I love working with you boys. I'm glad you're doing this. I'm glad I hope it takes off, and anything I can do, I'll be willing to help.
Hopefully we'll get you on another time, mate, in the near future, and we can talk some more bowling from there.
Okay. Thanks, lads.
Right.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, everybody. Take it easy.
Thank you.